Thank you so much for being here in this session as we have this wonderful discussion, Simplifying EdTech for Teachers and Amplifying Learning for Students. My name is Dr. Alfonso Mendoza, or you can call me Dr. Fonz. I am the host of the My EdTech Life podcast. So if you're familiar with the podcast, thank you so much for your support as always. And today I have two amazing guests that I've had the honor to meet, and we're going to have some great discussion here. And like I said, in case any of you do have some questions later on, we'll leave it open for some questions so you can ask our panel experts here or myself, or maybe just if you have some thoughts or anything that you want to share yourself, feel free to do so. This is one of those open spaces, safe spaces where you can go ahead and share what it is that you like and your experience. So by all means, I definitely encourage that. And today I am joined by Elena Klecker, right? Elena Klecker.
Yes.
Don't worry, we can edit all of that. Elena Klecker and Spencer Wright this morning. So I am going to give them a little bit of time to introduce themselves and give you a little bit of background and what their context is within the education space. So Elena, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Okay. I am a technology integration coach at Barbers Hill ISD in Mont Belvieu, Texas. And the best way to describe where we are located is east of Houston. We're kind of in between Houston and Beaumont. I was just telling Spencer over here that we are the last Buc-ee's before you get to Louisiana. So if that's not a Texas, description, I don't know what it is. But I work we're a pretty small district. We've got 8 campuses, and there are 3 of us on our instructional tech team, and we kind of divide and conquer our campuses, and it's a great job. I love it.
Excellent. Spencer.
So I'm Spencer Wright. I'm a robotics teacher. I've also been a math teacher. This is my 9th year teaching. I teach at Jacksonville ISD, which not Florida, Jacksonville, Texas, small town just south of Tyler. But yeah.
Excellent. All right. So today's conversation, like we talked about, as we know, since 2022, we have seen obviously an uptick in AI, generative AI tools in education. And it seems from year to year, there are more tools that are coming out, usually, almost monthly, or we're seeing new things. And for the most part, one thing that I have noticed since 2022 is that some of the major players within our education space have already kind of separated themselves from others, and they're pretty well established. Now, we know that a lot of these tools are in the classrooms in many districts across not only Texas, but across the nation, across the world. But what we want to talk about a little bit today is how teachers are feeling at the moment in the classroom too, as well, with so much influx of technology. And like I was mentioning to our amazing guests today, usually coming into these conferences, everybody has all the links, everybody has the free signups, the freemium sign up. You get your 30 days, they get you hooked, they get you excited, they got all the bells and whistles. And then when all that's gone, it's like, oh, now what? Like now I feel like I don't have that tool that might make a difference. So we want to talk about that also as well, that many of these tools, they do promise to save teachers time, but often, many times, of the complexity of those tools, sometimes they may not live up to those promises. So my first question here to Elena and Spencer is, from your perspective, what makes a tool something that is easy to use for a teacher coming in on a Monday morning? From your experience, can you describe that type of tool?
Yeah, I think that the pedagogy has to be first and foremost. That has to be at the forefront of your instruction. What's best for your students? What's easiest for your teachers to weave into their instruction. We don't want something that's just shiny and flashy. That I think, and that's what we get kind of caught up in these conferences, right? Is like, oh my gosh, that's so cool, and that person was so nice when they gave me that code. But we really need to think about, data privacy and student safety, and then exactly how are you weaving this into your instruction to benefit what's best for your students.
How about you, Spencer? What has been your experience?
So I really think something that is really easy to use. There are tools out there that are very complex and can do just about anything, but it takes a PhD and someone who basically designed it to know how to use it. And that's not always what a teacher in a classroom needs. They need something that's going to be easy to use, intuitive, help support them rather than making their job more difficult, more complex. It needs to focus on making their job easier. That way they can focus on their students.
My teammate actually had a good point the other day, and she was like, if it's more than 2 clicks away, like I don't want anything to do with it, and I know that some things, like, it takes me more than 2 clicks to get into my email, but we don't need to click here, click here, click here, and we're spending all of our time wasting instructional minutes and not delivering the best instruction.
Excellent. And that's a great point. That's something that in the years that I was working at a district as a learning and technology coordinator, it was if it's 3 clicks or more, like that's it. I don't need it. I need to get there instantaneously, quickly. And again, many times, obviously, those dashboards can be very confusing. They give you a lot of data, but is the data accurate? How do you really read the data? And how do you know that this is really a true measure of how the student is doing? So those are some of the things that we do see. Now, obviously, we are here. The exhibit hall is going to be open today. There's going to be plenty of vendors giving away all of the swag, all of the shiny stuff, all the codes and everything. But I want to ask you, and we'll start off with you, Spencer. We know that there are many tools that are marketed in a specific way for teachers and educators. Again, obviously, number one, they always say we want to take something off the teacher's plate. They always do. Uh, is it really happening? That's up to the teacher also. That's something that could be very objective depending on teacher to teacher. But I want to ask you, Spencer, in your experience, what might be some of the marketing disconnect that from these companies, the way that they market to teachers and the way that teachers really feel about the EdTech platforms?
So I think a big difference is whether something is useful or not. I think it's sometimes whenever they're marketing it, it's the way they see it, and sometimes they've never been in a classroom, and it's not always like, oh yeah, that's a great tool in theory, but in reality, that's not exactly what happens, or that's not what we need. And what we need sometimes is a disconnect from them.
No, and I would agree. I think that, there's with all of the AI that is in every product that we have nowadays, it's like, oh, look at how great this interactive component is for your students. But we have to make 6 copies so that you can assign it to 6 of your classes. And the teacher's like, wait, what? Like this is great, but I need the workflow to make sense as well.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned a very interesting point, Spencer, that many times, obviously, companies creating platforms, I don't think that they come in with that really good intention, but at the same time, they may not understand the day to day from teachers. Not every school district is going to be the same. Not every teacher is going to have the same need, or a grade level is going to have the same need. And I think for the most part, they try their best to share that right across and have tools that are readily available. But I do truly feel and believe that maybe there needs to be a lot more teacher feedback and input. And I know for the most part, when we do go to conferences, there are many vendors that are out there that will meet with educators, teachers, or you've got your ambassador groups, you've got your innovator groups and things of that sort, where the companies really take to heart what some of that feedback is and start making those changes. And I think that that's something, at least to say for some of those major players, that they are listening to what teachers need to closely help them at least offload some of that extra stuff that could easily be taken care of. But at the same time, we don't want to lose sight as far as, let me just automate my classroom where I can just sit down and let the tech be my tier one instruction. So my next question to you would be, how do you feel about that as far as maybe the perception that a lot of the companies might be selling this as, here is your solution, and just kind of leaving it at that, as far as pedagogy is concerned, teacher needs. So Elena, we'll start with you.
Well, I just think, since COVID, teacher, like you said, teachers have so much on their plates, and they have had for years. And, in the spring of 2020 when everyone was praising teachers. Oh my gosh, I don't know how you do this. And like people kind of got an inside look at all that teachers had on their plates. And then that plate just kept getting piled on and piled on. So these companies are almost like, and not saying all of them because there's some amazing companies out there, but they're almost preying on it where they're like, oh, you're so overwhelmed that you have so much on your plate. Look at this. This will grade this for you. Or look at this. AI is going to grade all of your students' written assignments for you. And it's like, whoa, hold on. Like, you still need to be the teacher and you still need to lay eyes on what your students are doing and have that human interaction, because that's what teaching is human centered.
Exactly. Spencer, how about yourself? What are your thoughts?
So kind of pick it back off of what she said. The teacher still needs to be the teacher in the room. And I think a lot of these companies are marketing it in a way where teachers think, oh, this is going to do my job for me. It shouldn't do your job for you. It should help you do your job better. It should help you to take off time from tasks that you do repetitively, and then you can go back and really focus on whatever output it's giving you, whether it be, like she said, grading something. You can then go look at those papers and say, okay, let me look at just those students that struggled. How can I help them? Or who are the students that are really successful? How can I challenge them more?
Yeah, and I'm not knocking AI. I love AI, but like I've told my team before that AI has almost made me the teacher that I've always wanted to be. Like I'm able to ask the questions that I never would have thought to ask before. I'm able to personalize the instruction better and hit the needs of most students in my classroom better than I ever could have before, because AI is looking at those data insights and, helping me write those higher level thinking questions.
Excellent. And so one thing that I do want to add to that you said is you still have that teacher eye. Now, this is just an anecdote from my experience, um, and my fear, and a slight fear of that automation where a lot of the tools, you just crank stuff in there, and then it'll give you that output, your students' grades and so on. Uh, my fear of that automation or that extreme automation when you don't have eyes on that is, first of all, like when our district, we came into Google Workspace, and then all of a sudden it's like, we don't know how to use this yet. So teachers were having to add students there manually or give them the codes and things of that sort. The following year, they automated everything to where the teacher logs in, they have all their roster set up, all the classroom set up. All they do is just click accept. Students are already there. And then slowly started seeing that year after year, now our books are tied to the Google Classroom. This platform is tied to Google Classroom. This platform is tied to Google Classroom. And so what happens is the assignments are given. They're sent out to the students. They complete it. They click turn in. And then all of a sudden, whatever's in the grade book, all of a sudden goes into the student management system or the SIS where all the grades are. And we slowly started seeing that teachers no longer had eyes on those grades. It was, well, it's completely automated. I don't need to look. Like they got a 70, that's a 70. If they got a 60, that's a 60. But they weren't really taking the time to say, okay, why did they get the 60? And what might I be able to do to improve the learning? Kind of turning the mirror on myself and saying, okay, what other instruction or supplements can I do for the students? And so, like Elena was saying, it's you still need to have eyes on those outputs that the platforms are giving you, as much as it is saving you time. But at the end, is it really working for the student? Because then it could just turn all about me and be like, well, I'm done. I did what I needed to do. If they are not passing, you're going into a 504 IEP meeting, and then they ask you, well, what can the student do better? What are you going to tell them if you haven't even been looking at the data? It's like, well, they just need to study more. They need to come into tutoring, but show me some artifacts. Is there any growth from beginning of the year to the end of the year? So those are some things that are definitely very important.
No, and I would agree. And I think, when a student does work in Google Classroom, like they're answering a short constructed response on a Google slide, when you think about the teacher having to go in and grade that Google slide, we're going into Google Classroom, we're clicking on the student, then we have to click on each individual assignment. And it makes it difficult to actually grade that work. But like, that's something that could be done on paper. A short constructed response. I know that our students have to type, obviously, for STAR and things like that. But like, that is also something that can be done on paper. And how much easier is that to grade?
So Spencer, my question to you is like, as we know, when we talk about tools, and sometimes the complexity of these tools. Some may be overly complex. And for me, working with teachers and instructors, it's usually a good tool is not necessarily going to be front and center, but it's a tool that's going to kind of fade into the background and gives the teacher the spotlight. Because at the end of the day, it's your classroom, you're the tier 1 instructor, you're the one that's sharing that knowledge and know-how to students. So, Spencer, I want to ask you, in your perception or your experience, how would you describe a good tool that just kind of fades into into the background and still allows that teacher to have that spotlight?
Behind every classroom door, there's a story of patience, creativity, and the quiet power of shaping the next generation. Peel Back Education shines a light on these lived experiences, the real voices of educators on the front lines. Don't just subscribe to Real Voices, discover them, connect with them, and maybe even share your own too. Visit peelbackeducation.com to discover the stories shaping education and the people just like you living them every day.
So, with a good tool, I think it needs to be something that helps support the teacher and give the teacher new ideas or new insights or new ways to do something that they already were doing. I think to my own classroom, with differentiation, with giving new ideas, because I'm a robotics teacher, I need new ideas of how can I set this up in a way that's different, in a way that challenges the students, that pushes them to succeed and learn more and do more in the classroom. And using it doesn't necessarily always go up on the screen. The students don't always see it, but it's the things like coming up with new ideas for projects, new ideas to ways to make it interesting to them, new ways to tier it up and tier it down to meet the levels that my students are at.
Yeah, it's that modification and redefinition, type of instruction. And I would agree in that too. And then saying something that gives that immediate feedback to students too. So when you're thinking about like a Pear Deck, for example, where you're doing a live learning lesson, you're able to see your students work in live time and give them feedback in live time. Or if you're doing a space or a chat boost with Brisk, and those students are able to get that immediate feedback from that response.
Excellent. Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. I think oftentimes is the student-facing tools are just sometimes very difficult, or sometimes can be very distracting, or even the user experience, the user interface can just be very confusing for students. As many times what will happen is, and we were talking about this earlier, it's like, okay, your student may need some remediation. Just put them on this platform for 30 minutes and they log in and they're answering questions, but do they really understand? What happens is it's like a duplication of efforts. If they didn't understand it the first time with the tier 1 instruction and they weren't getting that immediate feedback, let's say from a teacher, having the teacher eyes, just saying, okay, just here, practice this, but you never resolve the issue here for them to practice here. So if they're practicing it wrong here, they're still practicing wrong here. They're getting the answers from, the platform, because it'll show them the answers, but are they truly understanding, and the engagement of it? So oftentimes I feel that many times it could be the tool that's in front of them is just really overwhelming and it's the star of the show. But as teachers, are we being responsible enough to look at the usage and the data, and is it really allowing our students to grow? And especially like Spencer said, tearing up or tearing down as needed, and really just kind of falling by the wayside, and still the teacher being front and center. So kind of coming into that question or that comment that we were talking about earlier, those platforms where you come in, do your 30 problems or 30 minutes per day. As far as EdTech is concerned, what are some things that EdTech companies might be able to do better to really understand the needs of the classroom teachers at this given time?
That's a tough one just because the needs of our students are ever changing. And I feel like in 6 months, we'll have a different conversation about what our students really need. But my teammate said it beautifully several months ago that there's a difference between compliance and engagement. Our students, yes, they're on their programs for 30 minutes to get the documentation that they met these TEKs or they mastered these standards or whatever the conversation may be. But is that really changing their learning experience? Is that meeting their learning styles? So I I don't really know how to answer that question, to be honest.
Yeah. No, and it's a valid point. It's very broad because, like you said, things are going to definitely change. But I think sometimes there's a disconnect, and sometimes that disconnect and that gap can go wider and wider based on some of the tools and saying, hey, well, we should be good here. And many times, based on the companies, they may stay stagnant because obviously they have investors or they may move up. Maybe the investment round hasn't quite come through. So that's kind of my fear too, is like them still being disconnected and being very just reacting to what is needed and say, okay, we gave you that, but then what else do we need to do to better support you? Spencer, any comments on that?
Well, I think to my own class of what I teach is robotics, and part of it is the engineering design process. And I always think that, the best projects that students come up with and they create comes not in the first 4 phases. It comes in the last phase of improve, when they go back and say, how can I make this better? How can I keep trying to do more and succeed more? And that's when where the companies can really go to try to succeed and do better with their products, is figure out, how can I make this product better? How can I talk to teachers, see what they need in the classroom, see where they're actually using, what they're not using, and focus on what they really are using, and how can we make it better for them, make it easier.
Yeah, and I think a lot of companies are kind of moving towards this like one-stop shop model where like they do everything, right? And then the price of everything, of course, triples when they do that. And like, I think about programs, 5 years ago that were just specialists in this one area. And I'm like, oh, I love going to this platform to use this specifically. But then it's like, okay, well, we're going to, quadruple our price, but we also can do this and this and this. But wait, I already have a program that does that. And so that's something to consider too.
Yeah, and I think with some of those companies, they're trying to go to be the one stop. They'll do everything, and they're so focused on doing absolutely everything. They're not worrying so much about do we do everything well? Do we do everything in a way that helps the teacher instead of making it more difficult for them to use our product?
Yeah. No, and that's a great point. That one-stop shop approach. I've seen it, and I'm sure that everybody here in our audience has seen that in the years that they've been in education. It hurts. It really hurts our districts because there could be tools that do, like Elena was saying, that one thing, and they do it very well compared to another platform that may have 3, 4, or all the tools that may not do it as well. But again, it's almost like here we come to conferences, we get all that excitement. It's almost like a dopamine hit for us that we're like, oh, we had this aha moment, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to go ahead and just throw it at my students. And now they have to log in. They have to remember a new login. Now they have to remember a new password. The teachers are like knocking at the CTO's door and be like, hey, CTO, can you open this up? It's like, well, no, I can't because privacy. Well, no, I need it open because they told me that I would be able to do this and accomplish this and so on. So those are some things that to consider many times, that now as we have a plethora of tools that are out there, the duplicity that many districts may have, where they may have something like, a Screencastify or an Edpuzzle and things of that sort, where some of them may be able to do the same thing, or one might do it better than another. Then just to really have those conversations and say, okay, which of these better suits us? But oftentimes what will happen is there are a lot of vocal people within the district too that don't want to lose something. And many times just to say like, well, I guess because we don't want to get in trouble or, have this issue, we'll still keep it. And we need to think about budgets too as well. Many of you, if you are at the district, side, understand that budgets have been very tight now for a while, just depending on what district you're in. And so things to consider is, finding out where your workflow is, what tools are working, looking at that data and making those decisions, which I know sometimes at the end can be very difficult because you may be taking a tool from a teacher that is really using it, but are they all really using it?
Yeah, and it's the teachers that are strong teachers, right? Like, we have a few in our district that are, top tier teachers that are, so committed to this one product. And I'm like, it's not the product that makes your scores amazing. It's you. It's the way that you are interacting with your students and the way you love your kids. It's not, this product that's changing your scores.
Yeah, and we were having an interesting conversation about that. This might get a little spicy, but sometimes the teachers may say, "Yeah, I need this platform," but is it really? And I agree with Elena. It's the tier one instruction. You as a teacher are the one that is really helping the students. At the end of the day, the platform is going to help supplement some of those gaps or maybe close some of those gaps. But sometimes we give a lot of credit to platforms, but platforms to me, I feel that's kind of like co-teacher per se, or that additional help and support. They should not be front and center, and it shouldn't be at first, then teacher. It's tier one. You are the experts. You're the knowledgeable ones. You're the ones that can read the room. We are the ones that understand students. We understand their backgrounds. We hear them. We try to amplify their voices. We try and help them support. But sometimes what will happen is there might be teachers that really love a specific product because they may be building their brand off of that product. And so I'm just being a little spicy there too as well. So, but I'll just throw that in there. But going back now, we talked a little bit about EdTech and all that, but now I really want to talk about amplifying learning for students. So, and this is going to be just a general question and we'll kind of break it down and go in deeper. But Spencer, I want to ask you, what might be some ways that we might be able to amplify learning for students, not too much, not taking tech too much into account, but kind of just focusing more on that tier one instruction. What can a teacher do better to amplify the learning, but again, not making the app the star of the show?
So I think to my own classroom and how I use technology within my classroom. So I use physical robots to actually teach the concepts that we're doing. But then I have an additional program that's a web-based program that the students can go on and get extra practice, and they use virtual robots on there. And it allows them to go and really succeed more. And I've set goals with them where they are supposed to get so far in the classroom by the end of the year, and then they earn their Golden Duck Award. So it pushes them to and motivates them to do more, to learn more, to practice more, as opposed to being the teacher. So I've heard from other teachers, oh, well, you just put the kid on the program and then they learn it. No, the program should be to help support them, to help them practice, to get another way, see it another way, but not necessarily do your job. You are still the teacher. You should still be doing the teaching. The students should be learning from you.
Yeah, and our job as educators for K-12 is to prepare our students for the walls outside, or for the world, I'm sorry, outside of the walls of our classroom. And you know, since COVID, we've seen this, decline in communication skills, and our students are not able to really talk to each other very well anymore, or to talk to anyone. So something that we really encourage in all of our professional development is encouraging teachers to have their students speak to their computer, even, using podcasting tools or Screencastify, where they're having the opportunity to record their voices and strengthen those communication skills, because that's something they will need to know how to do when they walk out of high school.
Yeah. And that's something that we talked about too, in amplifying learning for students. With obviously there's a lot of fear too, with now the good side about AI is helping teachers, do some of the grading or do some of the tasks and so on. But then also is like, well, if I gave my student this topic, what they have to write for me, they can do it in like nanoseconds and they're going to submit it. And maybe a lot of the students' work is going to look the same because they may be using the same platform. And the fear of, well, why do I even give an essay? Why do I even give this? So there is that other side of frustration of teachers of, well, what am I going to do now? Because they could just use AI to write all of this, or to do this problem, to do this essay, to do this project. But going back to what Elena was saying is the importance of discourse too in the classroom, discussions. There's given a point in time where I think after COVID, we came back, and I have not seen a lot of, well, and again, I'm only speaking in my experience, seen a lot of discussion happening within the classroom, having students talk and work in groups and be able to, again, like Elena was saying, do some podcasting or recording themselves, their voices, acquiring the knowledge, the skills, and so on. Because did a presentation yesterday where it's like 90% of what you learn right now, or even this discussion, like in an hour, you're going to walk out of here and you're not going to remember what we talked about, because of the forgetting curve. If you don't write it, you're going to forget about it too as well. If you don't practice it, even worse, you're not going to do that. My example was, I can give you all my phone number right now, and how many of you would be able to memorize that and tell it back to me in about an hour? There might be maybe one or two of you, but again, if we're not talking about it, if you're not internalizing, if you're not writing it down, or at least just kind of remembering things, then the students forget that knowledge. So going back to amplifying learning with students, we talked to Spencer said, how he amplifies, still using the tech, but continuing to grow with that. But tell me, in robotics, Spencer, the learning that students do, I mean, they're working in groups. What is it that you see when the students are actively involved in robotics, working as groups in a team? What are some of those skills that you see them excel in?
Howdy, y'all. It's Farmer Fops from Book Creator. Now listen up, partner. If you're wrangling lesson plans and trying to keep your students engaged, I got just the tool for you. Now remember, every student and teacher deserves a yeehaw moment, and Book Creator can give you just that. Book Creator makes it easy to get your students creating, collaborating, and sharing their ideas all in one place. Book Creator turns any classroom into a digital frontier, whether it's interactive notebooks, portfolios, or good old storytelling. Now, did I tell you it plays nice with all the other favorite apps? Egg smash it. I mean app smash it with Adobe, Google, and much more to take creativity to greener pastures. So saddle up and give it a try. Use promo code MyEdTechLife for a 3-month special treat.
So I see a lot of them excel in the communication, the teamwork, the job roles and that I give them. So the way I go into with groups is I tell the kids, okay, well, one of you is going to be an A student, one of you is going to be a B student, and your jobs are going to change on the day. Whatever day it is, like if today is an A day, well, the A student in the group, you're going to be the programmer today. B student, you're going to be the person that's telling the A student, hey, the robot did this over here at the project on the mat. It did this. We need to fix this. Okay. So they're going back and they're working on those soft skills of communicating with another person that might not have seen what the robot did necessarily. They might be working back at the desk or working on the next step.
And I can imagine there's probably a lot of productive struggle that happens in robotics for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I always tell them is the goal isn't get it right the first time. The goal is get it right eventually, because I understand none of them have ever seen robotics before in my classroom. So it's about learning it by the end of the project. Being successful at the end is what matters. I don't care if you fail 10 times. If you're successful in the end, that's what mattered.
Gosh, and that's such a powerful lesson for this generation of kids right now.
Elena, how about you? I thought you were going to continue, because I want to hear, I want to hear your insight on that and your experience.
No, I mean, I think 100% what he said, but like, I've always been an advocate for loud classrooms too. Like, I don't think a quiet classroom is necessarily a productive classroom. And so I encourage students to talk to each other, to collaborate, to disagree. And I think that there are a lot of technology tools that encourage that. But, I think that just goes back to strong instruction too, right? Like, that's the basics. Like, things that can be done on the substitution level, like, let's keep those on paper and out of tech. But if you can actually change the way that your students are learning with technology, absolutely, let's amplify it. But yeah, that's just my thoughts.
Of course. No, and I think it's fantastic. And again, just real quick anecdote, and I shared this yesterday with the way that tech, like you said, can help amplify, or modify assignments. Quiet classroom example here. 5th grade teacher, me. At the time, we only had one Chromebook cart, because Chromebooks weren't a hot thing at the time, but we had one Chromebook cart. checked it out all year, had it in my classroom. Everything that I did was group-based discussions. I would do my tier 1 instruction. I was doing science, social studies, and math at the time. So instruction would happen initially. Then day 2, you partner up, you get into groups of 4. You have your captains, you have your note takers, you have the person that's going to be creating your slide or your final assessment that we're going to be doing. And everything was digital. But the students, there was always a speaking component. So you would have to get up as a group and present, or students, when they did individual work, would have to do like a screencastify. They would do a slide, and then they would go ahead and, present their knowledge. And this was, again, just a reflection for me, also turning the mirror on myself, that if I caught something there, then I can fix any misconceptions, do a small teach, and so on. But they're working, they're talking, they're discussing. I had a set of twins. One twin was in another pod, I should say, and then one twin was in my pod. They're emergent bilingual students. The other pod was a sit and get worksheet style kind of pod. My pod was a little louder. They were very active. They were talking, they were discussing. At the end of the year, the twin that was in my classroom actually exited the bilingual program, while the sister ended up staying in that program because she did not have the practice in the speaking and the language, because we did so many presentations. Her sister got out of the program, and the parents, there was a discussion that was had, and the parents saying like, what happened here? Why is one of my twins being able to exit the program while the other one is not? And it was not a very pretty discussion. Imagine yourself being a parent of twins, or maybe brother and sister, whatever the case may be, and one of your children is excelling, and the other one is still caught in the program. But what I do is like, I second Elena in the importance of having the discussion. And yes, you can use the tech to complement the learning that is occurring, but again, always kind of being part and blending into that learning, and not necessarily being the star. And again, helping the students express themselves, communicate. You've got the productive struggle as they're working in teams. Imagine the different personalities. And I come from a very unique area. Like, I'm in deep South Texas. I'm right along the border. And in the district that I worked at, you've got a huge difference in socioeconomic, demographic, and so on. And now you have students that would normally not talk to themselves, or excuse me, not themselves, but talk to each other, I should say. Now they're working together, and then they realize too, it's like, oh, we have a lot more in common than I thought we did. And again, you're building those friendships. So that goes a long way for future ready skills, communication, collaboration, all that great stuff.
Yeah, so I was actually sharing that story that you told us in that session yesterday about the twins with my team. And one of our teachers is actually here presenting today. And she was going through her presentation with us, just kind of working through the last minute kinks and such. And she was sharing all of these wonderful things that she's doing in her classroom. Her students are recording, book talks, and they're directing green screen balloon parades for Balloons Over Broadway, and all of these things. And as a parent that has children in the district that we work in, I was like, my child didn't get to do any of that, but like, how powerful is it that like she's, including all of that in her classrooms, that's enhancing the learning. She had a student that was that had dyslexia, and was speaking so beautifully on camera, and they were like, her recall comprehension was just leaps and bounds ahead of what we thought it would be, because she was so comfortable on camera speaking about summarizing books and such. And just thinking about how powerful that would be if it was transferred amongst the entire grade level, rather than just one classroom.
Yeah. All right. So my next question here, Spencer, I want to start with you. Pretend that you can snap your fingers and you can have anything that you can ask for from your district at the district level down, from what your experience is, not only in your classroom, but seeing all the classrooms around you, all your colleagues, things. What would you say to your district leaders that you need the most to help your students be successful in amplifying their learning?
I would say that it's the tools that I use most often, the things like my additional curriculum that I use online. I use that on a day-to-day basis to help the students get extra practice and fill in the time after they've completed their normal project in class. That's such a great tool, and it helps them grow so much more. And then the district sometimes then also pushes other things like, hey, we have all these different tools and they were purchased for your classroom. Great. I don't use that. I it's not as a bad tool necessarily, but it's just not. It sometimes it's like worksheets and videos, and it's just like, sorry, that's not the best learning strategy. There are better things out there, like hands-on learning, project-based learning, stuff like that's a lot better. Sorry, I'm not going to use the things that. Yes, I understand that there's 10 different teachers that use it. It's not going to be me.
Yeah, every classroom is different. And I think that, like, that goes back to the tools too. Instruction has to be at the forefront, like strong tier 1 instruction. And then of course, meeting the needs of your students that need those extra supports or accommodations or whatever that may be. But it's a really loaded question, right? Like that's like, I mean, I don't even know if an EdTech tool would be the thing that I would say I want the most. I would say that I want my teachers to feel the craft of pedagogy, I think, stronger in their hearts than it would be an EdTech tool to support that.
So I guess what I would say, it seems like it would be like better professional development, in the sense but professional development, not just on the tool, but like you said, on the art of teaching, and I feel that maybe that is something that we kind of just need to look at a little bit more, that pedagogy of it, how the students are learning, how it is that we might improve our practice. Because if we're not improving our practice and continually learning, and we're doing the same thing year after year, I'm going to quote what Amy Minter said one day on my podcast. She said, you suffer from the twatty, which is this is the way we've always done it syndrome. And that is something that is terrible, because from year to year, if you're doing the exact same thing, then how are you yourself as a teacher growing? Because yes, it's nice that you have your lesson plans, you have everything from year to year, you already know what you're going to teach. And it's great that it's predictable and where where you're at, but how are you enhancing that learning to meet the needs of all of the students? So, I mean, professional development is great, but it has to be the right professional development. And it has to be even maybe from your own school, finding those teachers or those pedagogical leaders that are having that success to be able to share. Because as we know, many times people may come in from the outside and they really don't understand your demographics, they don't understand your needs, and it's really kind of like a cookie cutter approach, which may not be very helpful. Maybe you'll find some little gems there that you can sprinkle to what you're already doing great, but it's not always the case.
Yeah, so we lead the professional development for technology in our district too, and that we've kind of gone away from the model of like, this is how you use this tool. This is how, and we've like adjusted our model to where we're showing you how to use instructional strategies with the EdTech tool to support that strategy.
I think back to when I was teaching in math, there was a tool that I was trying to get the rest of my teachers on my team to use. And I told them, I was like, this is a really great product. I don't know why we're not using this. And I would try to show them real quick in PLC. And they were like, yeah, that sounds great, but we've been doing this for years. We've been using this product for years, and we still have this product, and it's not going anywhere. Whereas now TCEA is saying, well, no, now on the state test, we're going to use this. Sorry. This is a free tool online, and it's way cheaper. And all the teachers now went to a PD and they were like, wait, this is actually really great. I really like this and we're going to use this. And I was like, okay, great. Now that I'm in robotics.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a lot of it goes back to teachers being willing to go to PD and saying, I want to learn. I want to try to grow and see what's out there. And then not necessarily going back, and the approach shouldn't be try everything. It should be try what you think is going to really work and then really try it and see if it will work. Yeah. And what applies to your classroom as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with everything out there, it's so overwhelming. So like we always, in our PD, we start off by saying like, we want you to learn one new thing. And it's just, if you, out of 3 hours that we're sitting here talking at you and all of that, if you can pick one thing that you want to take away and work in your classroom, then I feel like that's a lot more manageable than, hey, try to totally, reinvent the wheel here.
Yeah, exactly. And especially here at this conferences that you go to, it's like water hose, just like a fire hose, right? Like, see, like everything's coming at you and you're going to be overwhelmed. There's going to be like just a huge cognitive overload. But I want to ask you now, with being here at this conference and what you were talking about, so, and I'll start with Spencer. So when you come here to TCEA, what is your best practice that you've seen? Because I know you said like we're going to learn all the things here, and you go back. What do you do first to select what it is that you're going to try, and what is your intention behind it? When you're looking at the product, when you're looking at that specific platform, what do you look for specifically?
So I'm going to take a step back even further. And whenever I sign up for these conferences, I go in with the mindset of what's my goal? What am I going to get out of this? What sessions am I going to pick that's going to help support this goal? So first year, whenever I was going into robotics, I came to TCEA and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to learn about all the different offerings out there for robotics. What different robots are there? What other items can I buy and use to support my classroom? Now this year, the focus is more on me starting to learn how to coach. And now I'm starting to move more into that space. And that's the classes I'm picking, as opposed to just this, I don't know, I'm just going to sign up for whatever. I focus what it is I'm trying to get out of the conference. And then as I'm going through those sessions, I'm really thinking about, okay, how can I use this? And I'm taking notes on, okay, go do this later. You don't have to remember it now, but go do this later. And then whenever I get back to school, read back through my notes. Oh, okay. I told myself to do that. I'm going to try that out today, I guess.
How about you, Lena? I want to know what your process is, because I know you said you're going to go back, you're going to give a PD session. What are you going to pick and how do you go about it?
Well, I kind of noticed a trend this year, the last 2 years at TCA, if there was a session that did not have AI in the title, then you were like, oh my gosh, that's a miracle. But like, I do feel like this year it's been like, not like dialed back, but it's almost like the human centered part of AI is like at the forefront. Like everyone's like, yes, we have AI, but do not remove yourself from the equation. And I feel like that's been the trend of a lot of sessions this week. And I totally support that. And when I go into sessions, I immediately just go like to scope and sequence, like, okay, what are my teachers teaching right now? And how can this be applied in what they're doing? And I mean, it's impossible for us to know everything about everything, right? And like I'm partial to like my RLA and social studies teachers, so like the math and the science is hard for me to wrap my mind around sometimes, but I try to think of how this can be applied cross content. And that's really my goal every time I come here, is to bring something back to the teachers that I feel like could revolutionize, their classroom.
Nice.
And I also think, like, whenever as a teacher or as an educator, we come to these conferences, whenever you learn about something, I think it's always a good idea to say, okay, here's been a great session where I learned a little bit, but I can always go back and try to learn more. I can go look and see if there's videos online about how I can do more with this product or learn more about this product, and really try to leverage what's out there. Maybe not necessarily professional development wise, but maybe like their help resources or whatever it may be, to try to learn more about the product later. I don't think coming here and saying, oh, we're spending all this money on time on going to the conference, you should come back and know everything. No, you should have ideas about everything. And now you're going to pick what ideas are good and try to implement them well.
Right, because like an hour-long session is not a long time to, talk about what you've been doing for the last year to your audience. So like, yeah, picking something that you remember later that you can come back and apply is absolutely the route to go.
Excellent. All right, now here's another question. Again, knowing a lot of platforms, a lot of tools that are here and so on. And some of the tools, maybe you're like, you know what, maybe this isn't for me, this isn't for us. And maybe you're very good at saying, like I think Spencer gave a great example right now where he said like, well, this is what we have. It's like, well, this doesn't quite align, but that's Spencer right there. Now, what advice would you give a teacher when, there's some tools that are out there, and not necessarily that they have to be district tools or anything, but, just to say like, hey, no, you know what? I'm good. I really don't need this tool at this time. What might be some ways that you can help them just not have that fear of saying no? Because oftentimes as teachers, it's like, okay, I'm going to do it. Just, yes, I'm going to do it. But just to say, you know what? nah, this doesn't quite fit here.
So, and this has been something that has been really hard for me to learn, is saying no to things. So, what I always remember is my job and my role is a teacher. It's not use what the district provided me. It's I'm the teacher. I'm the person in the room making the decision of how am I going to get these kids to learn X, Y, and Z. I don't necessarily have to use what the district's given me, all of the resources to do it. Now, yes, my district has given me some amazing resources. Do not get me wrong, but there are not all equal. And I don't always have to be using all of them. Certain things that they've given me, they apply great for X. Another thing might be great for Y. And a third thing might be great for Z, but I'm not always using all the resources. I'm picking and choosing what's best in my classroom, what's going to help the kids learn, how can I still be the teacher in the classroom that's making those decisions. It's not the district giving me all these tools and telling me, hey, use all of them every day. It's, hey, we're going to give you these tools. Here are your resources. Now I should be one in the room picking it.
Yeah, my teammates love the vendor hall at these events, and I always joke that it's my least favorite part because I'm terrible at saying no. Because I'm like, I'm sure, yeah, I'll sign up. Oh, like, and because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but that's a terrible approach. So, but I'm sorry, all joking aside, but I just think, yeah, you pick what's going to work. You know what's going to work as long as it weaves into your instruction appropriately.
Nice. All right. And we are going to leave some time for Q&A. We still have about 10 minutes, but last question to end with before, we open it up. But I want to ask Elena, we'll start with you first. If you can leave teachers or anybody that's here today and anybody that's going to be listening to the podcast later with one mindset shift around EdTech adoption, as far as what's going to help protect them, their time, and their students' learning, what advice would you give them?
I would say to remember the art of teaching. We came into this field to impact the lives of little people or bigger people if you're at the secondary level. But that's the true heart of what we do. And yes, absolutely use technology to amplify learning for students and to support the needs of students that have needs. But just remember why you came into this role in the first place.
Spencer?
I think some of the mindset needs to shift a little bit. And when picking EdTech and choosing what tools to adopt, I think it needs to be more open conversations with the entire staff. And I think everyone needs to be in the process of deciding what is being picked, because then everybody has a say in it and everybody can say, okay, well, I was part of this decision. Now we're going to use it.
Right,
and instead of, hey, here's one person up at the district level, hey, I think this is a great tool, we're going to use it. If the teachers have some say in the process, they're going to be a lot more bought into it, because I see a lot of teachers in the trench with me who are just like, oh yeah, we're given all these tools and some of them are great and some of them I've literally never been taught how to use. So why even try to use it?
Elena, did you want to add to that?
No, I wholeheartedly agree. As he was going, I was like, yes, they're going to buy into that if they have a say so, so no, you're 100% correct.
I think for myself and the episodes that I've recorded recently on the show, one of the major components was really having the right people in the room. And that means that it's not just an executive director that's going to make the decision for the district, but it's that executive director bringing in those classroom teachers, the paraprofessional support, the special ed staff, and just having everybody in the room to look at what the platform is intended to do, what it will do, and see if it's something that's going to work out very well for the district. Because oftentimes it's one person makes a decision for everybody, but they have not stepped foot in those classrooms to do walkthroughs, to go and see the day-to-day. One year I challenged the curriculum and instruction department, and I was like, ooh, they didn't really like that. But I said, you know what? One year, like, just go and follow a first grader. Don't take your cell phone. Don't take your laptop. Sit down in the classroom, follow them the whole day, and see if what you're planning on doing is going to effectively help the teacher or if it's something that is going to just completely ruin that flow of that day. So as an administrative leader that is out there, you need to take into account those things as well. Don't just be that ultimate decision maker. You need to have all stakeholders at the table, and that could be very important and very detrimental to the success of not only your teachers, but the success of your students. Because if your teachers are successful, the students are going to be successful too as well. All right. Does anybody have any questions or any comments that they would like to share, or any questions for our guests at all whatsoever? Anybody? Yeah. All right. Here we go. This is Chris. Here you go, Chris.
Thank you. As an EdTech for my building in my district, I feel a lot of the times we treat the teachers differently than we say the students need to be taught. So they buy this new thing and they go, here you go. And there's some sort of PLC or PD training time that's like an hour for this brand new piece of tech that is like, you're going to write a web-based, a website for your classroom with this program. And we just go, well, but there's a module on Canvas for you to be able to know how to do this thing, or there's videos that you can go watch. And we say we shouldn't do that to our students, but then we do it to our teachers for the new stuff. What would be a good district policy, or what do you do if you have something good in your district that you do to roll out new tech for teachers to really understand it before they start to implement it in their classrooms?
Great question.
So it's not my job, but it's my friend's job on campus. He's the technology strategist, and most of his job isn't necessarily going out and giving PDs. It's a blend of that, yes, but he's also constantly being available. He has time each day where he sets aside and says, if you have questions, if you need help, if you need to learn something about something, I'm here during this time. I'll help you. And he goes around all day long and he'll help you if you need help. All you have to do is shoot him an email and say, hey, I need help on this platform I use in classroom.
I love that. So we're very, very intentional about the way we plan PD for our district. And we, like I said, we're fortunate enough to deliver technology PD for our district. And we do a staff survey at the beginning of every school year, like which, PD was the most impactful for you during the summer months or whenever you did take your PD for that exchange time. And we do take that into consideration when we plan our PD. But this we're going to talk spicy here. I am not a fan of online PD. I just feel like it's an easy way for, like, I know that when I do my Safe Schools training at the beginning of every year, it's click, click, click to get through it, let it run in the background. And I feel like if we give our teachers that option to just click through online PD, then they're not actually taking anything away from it. When we are hosting PD, we are intentional about the strategies with how we deliver that tool, and hopefully modeling proper instructional strategies for them to use in the classroom.
Yeah, to piggyback off what you said, I think more hands-on instruction is better. I mean, we say to our teachers, hey, hands-on learning is the best. And then we turn around and we do online training and it's like, what are we doing? So I think better professional development should be included where it's more hands-on. They get time to practice, to use it, to try it out, and then come back later and have a follow-up session. Okay, what were your questions? What went great? What went wrong? How can we help you to be better and use this product the way it was intended?
I know at the district that I work at they had the TOT model. So every campus had somebody there to help support that rollout. Now, again, being very conscientious of teacher time, especially their conferences that are short, like our elementary conferences, I think it's like 30 minutes that they get only, and they have a PLC that's like 30 minutes also. And so having to maximize that time, because we don't want them to stay. Somebody is on there, on site. So that's a fantastic part that's really helped out. But I think that this goes above just even the campus level. This has to be at a district level where the administrators have to know and say, hey, how many minutes are in a day? And again, if they don't do walkthroughs and they don't go see how your schools are flowing and what goes on the day-to-day, then how are they going to know how to schedule this and just say, oh, well, just give them that time during their conference. What if it's 45 minutes? What if it's 30 minutes? How are you going to go ahead and digest all of that information of a new platform and then be expected to use it successfully? And then the usage isn't there because they don't feel comfortable with it and they don't have anybody that is there. So it's something that would change the last 2 years is in the summer, we have what we call the Level Up University. So it's a 2-day full event, similar to kind of like a TCEA flow, where you have the teachers that are there. And then, of course, if you have those major vendors, they come in, they are there, and they'll provide that longer hands-on training of what is going to be rolling out for that next year or the continuation of what is there. So sometimes you have to get creative. I know we have district PD days also as well, where you're signing up, you're showing up, and you're trying to be as intentional about it. But at the end of the day, I think it's, as district leaders, you need to know where the time is, because teachers also need their time to prepare, and that's something that is very important for sure. That's a big thing. Yes. Hold on. Here you go, Baran.
I think that goes back to like what you originally asked them in terms of like the bright and shiny things, because the district level people are hearing from the teachers, we want this, we want this, we want this. And so I think sometimes the decision of what they decide to roll out for the year may not be timely or the best choice for the district. And so I think that goes back to like making sure that you are including the right stakeholders, because like if you roll it out and you're rolling out like 3 new things district wide, that is going to add more to the teacher's plate and overwhelm them. And so I think being intentional, like you talked about earlier, with that, and then making sure that you have systems in place to not just be a training at the beginning of the year and no support. When you ask what would you pick? Probably more support staff that actually went in the classrooms to support teachers, because I've seen that in multiple districts around our community, is that there's a lot of people outside of the classroom, but they're not truly supporting the teachers in terms of the day in and day out, in terms of the live coaching with these teachers that may be alternative certified or not fully certified. So I think that that's really critical too, in terms of just whatever the district decides to roll out, like make sure there's buy-in, and then the teachers have the time to implement it properly before jumping to the next big thing.
All right, Erin.
And I would just piggyback on that too, is like, and I think he mentioned it with having the goals, even just when it comes to the conference, but having a goal for what we are wanting to happen for our district at all. Because if, sure, yes, we want to implement this tool and that's great, but we've got these 3 new things. Okay, what is the goal with those 3 new things? Why are we getting those 3 new things? Was it just because it was bright and shiny and 5 people said it was great? Is there a ultimate goal that we're trying to reach with it? Like how, it's definitely you can go all over the place if you don't know what it is that you truly want to get out of the tool.
They need to know, like the teachers want to know what their expectation is. Like, do I need to use it? Or like Spencer, is it okay if I don't use it? And then just having that, because not knowing the clear expectation confuses the teachers and adds more to their plate and their whole social, emotional well-being.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree with you. And so instead of offloading and taking something off their plate, and this is the way that I always saw it at the district level, and I'm like, why do we do this? It's like, oh, yeah, we're going to take this off of your plate, but then we're going to add these other 2 things on there. I was like, and then they're like, well, we took it off their plate, but you put 2 others on there, like 2 other things. So it's just being very cautious about those things too as well. Does anybody else have one last question? Couple. Sean, here you go. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, I guess this is less a question, more a comment extending on what we're just talking about. But sometimes in some of the sessions I've been to in the past year with all the emphasis with the AI-based EdTech, sometimes I feel like there's such a focus on this. What it does is it saves you time. It's the efficiency of it. And sometimes it feels like the push can be, oh, this saves us time. It gives us efficiency to do these other things we want to do. But it kind of feels like you're treating a symptom. You're not treating the fundamental problem, which is is what we actually need more support staff in the classroom, or do we need more dedicated PLC time, or do we have overburdened classrooms, right? And there's only so much this tool can do to try to fix that problem. It can maybe make your life a little bit more efficient and you get a little bit more time, but it doesn't actually fix that fundamental issue. And that's sometimes the thing I feel in some of these PDs and presentations I've been given is like, this is nice, but is it actually addressing the fundamental issue that's really going on in the classroom?
Well, and that's a great comment, because like we need to talk about too is like we're addressing these things, and what happens I think is you're putting a Band-Aid over a Band-Aid, and then it becomes another Band-Aid, and you're never really getting to the root of the issue. And by not getting to the root of the issue, you're just spending a lot of money and you're spending a lot of teachers' time on these initiatives, but you never really got to the root of the problem. And I think that's something that also needs to be talked about, and even at the district level, and having those district leaders saying, okay, like if this is what we're spending and we're spending $500,000 on this platform to teach us about digital security, but nobody's using it and we're still having these issues, is it really worth that money? What is the issue? What is the problem? What can we do at a granular level instead of just, hey, here's $500,000, take it. And the expectation is that everybody's going to use it, everybody's going to go through it, and everything's going to be fine. And it's not always the case. Or for a math platform, an ELA platform, the exact same thing. It's like, oh, they're going to get more practice with 30 minutes. Oh, their scores are going to go up. But they practice those 30 minutes and they're still getting the questions wrong because there's no immediate feedback or follow through. So do we need more support? Now we need to work on tier 2. Do we have tier 2 staff that can help, supplement the tier 1 support and things of that sort? So yeah, it definitely is something that we can open up and we can continue talking here. But I want to thank every single one of you that was here. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your questions, your comments. Thank you so much to Elena and Spencer. Please give them a round of applause. They did a fantastic job today. And this episode will air probably maybe even today. I'll put it up there and I'll tag TCEA on it. But thank you so much for being here with me, Dr. Fonz from My EdTech Life. So you can check out the website at myedtech.life, where you can check out this episode and other wonderful episodes where I promise you will find some little gems and nuggets that you can sprinkle onto what you are already doing great. So thank you very much, guys. And until next time, don't forget, stay techie.